The idea of perfection is what's stopping you from being perfect. Now, by this I don't mean ambition, I don't mean striving, but I mean that toxic, negative, depreciating perfection. Thing that leaves you feeling inadequate and hopeless and drained, not fulfilled and content and aware that you've done something that strives to be more you, yourself as you know it. The entire premise around self-help and other various manners of things is to be perfect, to be good, to be better, to improve more. More. Why aren't you doing more? Why don't you have your own business while running a marathon every morning, while training 5 times a week, while learning 6 languages, while having 3 degrees, while raising a wife and kids, while being independent? Why don't you have more? Why aren't you perfect? Why aren't you like the people? You get the rant. You get the idea. There is a concept of perfectionism that simply does not exist. In and of itself, because we are human, the idea of something being perfect, the word perfection, is already imperfect. Nothing can be perfect. Even if it exists in its own right as whatever perfect means, because we are human, but because we perceive it, or we think about it, or we say it, because we leave our stamp on it, to be human is to be imperfect. No? We can't ever give expression to a totality. We can't ever draw a perfect circle. We can't ever have a perfect life because there is always something more. There is always a better idea. You could have said this better. You could have worded that better. You could have done this better. You could have been here before. You also know the list of reasons because that's why you're here. And that's also why I'm here, because I'm also hung up on this idea of perfection. Numerous videos I've recorded and haven't posted because I don't think them to be perfect. But there's that difference between that lofty perfection that, like I said, when we pursue it, we don't feel like we've done something. We actually just feel inadequate, less, worthless. It's gone. It's up here. It's out of frame. Who knows what it is? We tried to give name to it. But you can bring it down so it's pushing those limits. It's pushing those limits. But it's something attainable. And the name that came to me was the concept of humane perfection. Kind of an oxymoron, quite paradoxical, because like I said, to be human is to be imperfect. So how can you be imperfect? I'm saying imperfect so much. How can you be imperfectly perfect? I think a better question is how far can you strive? How high can you go? How deep can you go? How well can you be? Very vague terms. Sometimes I know a lot of people disagree with them, especially with the common self-help nomenclature and a lot of the vocabulary of the higher self and the deeper self and the truer self. I don't want to get into the messiness of the meaning of things, but it's just how far can you go without losing the sight, the sense of the mission, a sense of the mission without being grandiose. And then what do I mean by being grandiose? I mean being so obsessed with the self. Maybe not yourself, maybe not exactly. There is definitely egocentrism and narcissism involved in levels of perfection, because it's always about you and what you want and what you have to have. At the same time, you can be a perfectionist about things around you. It still ties into you though. Something interesting to think about. But there's also the self, the Jungian self, let me define, I have it right here. Look at that. Don't worry about that. It was imperfect. There's one book here. It's actually, I'm sorry if you heard that, but I just smacked the mic. This is Psychology and Religion on my little book stand, because I am mid transcribing notes for it. It also just makes a nice little backdrop so you're not staring at this bleak whiteness. Because even this room's imperfect. Even my setup's imperfect. I'm imperfect. How far can you go to not push that Jungian self? And by the Jungian self, without going so far into the amount of descriptors and knowledge that is needed, it's like the ideal self, if you're familiar with Maslow or Kazimierz Dombrowski, who I also have up here. And for anyone in my audience who is Polish or speaks Polish, I am sorry for the mispronunciation, but also a good book, because it also deals with the themes of perfectionism, but also teaches you to pursue these values, but not be drowned out by them. The self, maybe you see something. Maybe you have a vision or a concept or an idea of where you would be, of who you could be, of what you would ideally do and your life would ideally be like. Not being perfectionist, not being unrealistic, but being human, being a bit ambitious, a bit idealistic, because you are worth your ambition. You are worth it. You deserve this. You deserve such the bright future that you see yourself to have, that you know that you are. You deserve to be the person you know you are. You just need to work for it. You need to take the time. I say need a lot. It's my opinion. What do I know? But if you want to give my opinion a try, I advise take time, however you work. Go for a walk, write it down, paint a picture. Think about who you are and where you want to be. Values, ideals, or what you can realistically attain without drowning yourself in so much mess, because it will happen, and it will keep happening. And it's not something you can escape, because the self isn't something to be abhorred or to hate, but it isn't something to identify with and to confuse ourselves, our ego, us identity with. I am dropping a lot of words, and if anyone is new to any of these terms, I will have various other videos, hopefully in the channel, which helps explain and goes into topics. You can also find various articles and other people on this platform talking about the same thing. Maybe a more clarity than me, most likely, but yeah, this happens. If I was so hung up on being perfect, I wouldn't be making this video. Instead, I'm trying my damned best to push those higher values. I respect myself. I have boundaries. I set times to do the tasks that make me who I know I am. But I'm also not harsh on myself when things don't turn out the way they are, because we don't have control over a lot of things, over so many things. To know where your control lies, where that boundary is, where you need to push, what parts of your boundaries you need to fortify with hammer, with concrete, and what parts you might need to open up to let in fresh air and maybe even some visitors. Knowing your limits and what needs to be done to them is embracing kingly energy from another book, Robert Moore's King or Magician Lover. This is on masculine archetypes. I highly recommend the read. It also talks about the self. That's because he's a Jungian analyst. But to know where your boundaries lie, where your perfectionism is healing and is draining, and to what to do with it, I can't explicitly tell you, because it's about you and your methods and your humanity. But a start, something that might help. What behaviors are you doing right now that just you feel here? No. I think it's the simplest way I can describe it. You feel it to not be right. It's crushing, it's ripping you out from the inside. It's screaming. The voice is scratching like nails on a chalkboard. I'm struggling to articulate this because there's such raw emotion here. It's almost a primordial feeling of wrongness, of this is not right. This is not who I am. A small whisper. You're better than this. Maybe not even better. It's just this is not you. Because for better or for worse, the voices are there, which just makes someone sound crazy, but hey ho, if that's what we are. And even in my tangents, I'm trying to keep myself on track, a balance between perfectionism and not. So I'm going to roughly bring it back around full circle just to make sure I haven't deviated anywhere. Perfectionism is a great thing. For ambition, for drive, for want. You deserve this. You are worth this. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to have drive. But when it's too much, almost impersonal, when it's crushing, debilitating, and destroys all self-esteem, your relationships with others, your relationship with yourself, with your habits, it's starting to get a bit far-fetched. So we come down to humane perfection, where we work with what we've got and who we know ourselves to be, and we start living. Essentially, hopefully. You will feel weird at first. You'll feel almost foreign, borderline imposter syndrome, because you're trying to get comfortable in a body you haven't quite been in. You're trying to hash out thought patterns that have come up and come up and come up time and time again. You're trying to look at life with a new perspective. So unsurprisingly, things will be different. And that's okay. Because you keep listening to your soul, to yourself, to God. Say it however you want. Inside, outside, both, neither. Who knows? I can't tell you how to be human. I can just harp on about how I'm trying to be human. Hope that you get something from it. Hope that you learn to be human. And then we have some sort of communication and we can better this. You try to listen to yourself, but you try not to identify with that almost divine standards of perfectionism. So you push, but you know to rest, you know to relent, you know to be compassionate, not critical. There's a lot of ideas here I'm spewing out, so please don't worry if you don't take it all in. I probably need to work on my refinement, not to a level of perfectionism, to a level of standard. And ideas will be revisited with videos to come. Take it easy on yourself. If you enjoyed, thank you for staying. And if there's anything I can do to improve, please let me know. I hope to see you at the next one. Ciao.